That's... Aryna, that's crazy.
That was my moment. It was so much fun. You know what? It's so funny.
Rome already knew her name before she ever stepped on the court. That's not a metaphor. Tournament organizers had quietly rerouted schedules, reshuffled center court assignments, and built the draw around a 19-year-old Filipino wildcard who had just done something nobody ranked that low had ever done in WTA history. Walk through 3 Grand Slam champions back-to-back in straight sets on one of the biggest stages outside the majors. The Italian Open hadn't even started, and Alex Eala had already taken the room. Aryna Sabalenka noticed. Of course she did. She arrived in Rome as the undisputed number 1, 9 consecutive WTA 1000 wins, the Sunshine Double locked in, Coco. Goff defeated in the Miami final. By every calculation, this was her tournament, her clay, her crown. Nobody said otherwise out loud, but the energy had already moved somewhere else. Then came the quarterfinal that cracked everything open. A shocking loss to Jang Soo-jong. A fan's voice cutting through the silence. And Sabalenka, composed, dominant, almost mechanically brilliant all season, suddenly visibly unraveling in front of a Roman crowd that had already given its heart to someone else. The obscenity, the code violation, the stunned Aryna, and then, almost immediately, the admission she didn't see coming from herself. I didn't expect that, to be honest. I'm super proud, super happy, super honored. Those words landed heavier than most people realized. Because what happened in Rome wasn't just an upset. It was the moment women's tennis quietly acknowledged that a new story had entered the building. And nobody could pretend not to see it anymore. Hit subscribe now. Because what the scoreboard recorded is the least interesting version of what actually happened. The real story didn't start in Rome. It started 6 weeks earlier, on the hard courts of Miami, where a teenager ranked 140th in the world walked in as an afterthought and walked out as a conversation that hasn't stopped since. Alex Eala arrived at the 2025 Miami Open with no seeding, no real expectations, and no protection from the draw. What followed wasn't a lucky streak carried by collapsing opponents. It was a precise, fearless dismantling of the tournament's biggest names, one after another, under pressure, on a grand stage where young players typically disappear. First, Jelena Ostapenko. Eala trailed 4-0 in the opening set and fought, back to win anyway. Then Madison Keys, the reigning Australian Open champion, dismantled 6-4, 6-2. The first time a Filipino player had ever beaten a Grand Slam champion at tour level in the Open era. Then Iga Swiatek, down 4-2 in the second set, won in straight sets. 3 Grand Slam champions, 1 tournament. No wild card had ever done that in WTA history. Eala also became the second lowest-ranked woman to reach the Miami semifinals and the first Filipino player to crack the top 100, jumping from 140 to 75 almost overnight. Her run ended against Jessica Pegula in a semi-final that stretched past midnight. 3 sets, clawing back from a lost opener, pushing one of the tour's most experienced players to her absolute limit. Pegula acknowledged it afterward. No one who watched it questioned the result. But here's what that run really meant. Sabalenka was also at Miami. She won the title. She completed the Sunshine Double. She was dominant, polished, and exactly what number 1 looks like. And somehow, the tournament felt like it belonged to someone else. 2 women, 1 event, 2 entirely different gravitational pulls. Eala didn't win the trophy. She won the narrative. And in modern professional sports, those aren't always the same currency. When the clay season opened, Eala made a deliberate choice. She skipped a lower-tier event in Catalonia. Rome was the target, not a learning experience, a statement. The draw sharpened the tension further. Eala landed in Sabalenka's half of the bracket, and suddenly a potential collision between the sport's reigning queen and its fastest-rising teenager became the subplot driving attention toward Foro Italico before a single ball was struck. In the days before the tournament began, both players trained at the same facility on consecutive days, rallying with the same American practice partner. Eva Jovic with Eala one afternoon, Sabalenka the next, on the exact same court, preparing for the exact same battlefield. 24 hours apart. Two players separated by rankings, by titles, by everything tennis uses to measure hierarchy, and yet somehow occupying the same space, the same moment, the same story. It felt cinematic. Then the tournament started, and reality arrived hard. Marta Kostyuk crushed Eala in the opening round, 6-0, 6-1, barely 62 minutes. Eala couldn't find a single break point. She won barely 17% of her return points. The clay exposed her completely, timing off, rhythm gone, confidence nowhere. It was the kind of lesson the surface delivers without apology when one player is operating at peak form and the other is still searching for her footing. The lazy take was obvious. She got exposed. She was never ready. But that take ignores what happened next. Kostyuk had just won the Madrid Open. She carried that form straight into Rome, sharp, aggressive, ruthless. After defeating Eala, she went on to beat Daria Kasatkina and Leylah Fernandez before facing Sabalenka herself in the round of 16. That match told the real story. The world number one, dominant, on a 9-match winning streak, the best player on the planet, needed over 2 hours to overcome Kostyuk's 6-1, 7-6, 8. Sabalenka faced 12 breakpoints before Kostyuk finally converted her 13th. The Ukrainian served for the second set at 5-3 and pushed Sabalenka to the absolute edge before the Belarusian clawed back, saved a set point in the tiebreak, and escaped. On her third match point, with a perfectly placed drop shot. The same player who destroyed Eala in 62 minutes nearly took a set from the world number one. That's the context, the she got exposed narrative quietly buried. But Eala's Rome wasn't over. Doubles changed everything. Partnering with Coco Gauff for the first time, they opened with a commanding 6-3, 6-1 victory, followed it immediately with another straight sets win, and arrived at the quarterfinals facing defending champions Jasmine Paolini and Sara Errani, two clay court specialists, in their home country, in front of a crowd that had spent the entire week cheering for them. Eala and Gauff stormed to 5-3 in the first set with a 40-0 lead in hand. Then the veterans clawed back. The second set swung the other way, a deciding super tiebreak, an atmosphere that felt like a final, and two teenagers refusing to fold in front of a stadium built to celebrate the other side. Paolini and Errani survived, 7-5, 3-6, 10-7. 1 hour and 39 minutes. Think carefully about what that represents. The same teenager who had been overwhelmed in singles just days earlier came back a week later and pushed two clay court legends to the brink of elimination in a hostile arena. That image doesn't show up on the scoreboard, but it reveals something about Alex Eala that results alone can't capture: resilience, mental reset, and the ability to compete fearlessly even after humiliation. Rome was quietly showing the tennis world who she actually was. On the very same day that match unfolded, Sabalenka stepped onto Campo Centrale for her quarterfinal against Zhang Suzhong, and everything collapsed. On paper, this wasn't supposed to be a contest. Sabalenka led their head-to-head 6-0, including a victory in the 2024 Australian Open final and the Miami quarterfinals just weeks earlier. Zhang had never beaten her, not once. Rome had different plans. Zhang won 82% of her first serve points. She refused to give Sabalenka any rhythm. She saved all 5 break points she faced with fearless precision. Sabalenka created chances she couldn't convert. The frustration built visibly, shot by shot, game by game, until it became impossible to contain. Then a voice from the crowd, "Come on, Aryna, play tennis!" Sabalenka turned toward the stands and shouted back, full volume. The obscenity landed, clearly. The chair umpire issued the code violation instantly. The arena went quiet, then electric. The clip spread worldwide within hours. Zhang closed it out 6-4, 6-3, 97 minutes. Her first career win over the world number one. And here's where the real meaning of this story begins to take shape. Because this was never about one comment, one outburst, or one bad match. It was about something building beneath the surface. For weeks, the uncomfortable growing pressure of watching a new generation begin to redirect attention that had always belonged to the sport's dominant champions. Back in Miami, members of Sabalenka's camp had reportedly grown frustrated over scheduling adjustments, matches moved, center court plans quietly rearranged around Eala's expanding global following. Tournament director James Blake openly acknowledged it. Eala needed the main stadium. The atmosphere she generated demanded it. Miami was starting to feel like her home court, not Sabalenka's. That is not easy to watch in real time, even when you're winning. Even when your ranking, your results, and your dominance are completely beyond question. The energy of a tournament is a different kind of scoreboard, and it was beginning to orbit someone else. Rome intensified everything. The quarterfinal collapse, the outburst, the code violation, the visible cracks. None of it could be separated from what had been building since Miami, and it didn't stop in Rome. At Roland Garros, weeks later, Sabalenka reached the final and lost to Coco Gauff. What followed became one of the most controversial press conference moments of her career. She suggested Gauff hadn't played extraordinary tennis, that her own errors had gifted the match away, and implied Swiatek might have beaten Gauff had she reached the final instead. Then she called it the worst Grand Slam final she'd ever played. The backlash was immediate, global. Gauff responded with quiet, composed precision, saying she completely disagreed and believed she had earned the win through her level and her mental strength. The contrast couldn't have been sharper. Suddenly, the conversation surrounding Sabalenka wasn't only about her tennis. It was about how she handled pressure, how she processed loss, and whether the rising tide around her was beginning to affect something deeper than her game. What followed was an extended public exercise in damage control. Sabalenka wrote Gauff a private apology. She appeared on Eurosport Germany and called her behavior completely unprofessional, acknowledging she'd let emotion overwhelm her judgment. She accepted responsibility. She affirmed that Gauff's victory was fully deserved. The two were later photographed together online, laughing, lighthearted, signaling publicly that the chapter had been closed. But even at Wimbledon, where Sabalenka fell in the semi-finals, the ghost of Paris followed her into the press conference. She opened with a deliberate joke. "Are you guys waiting for something? You're not going to see a Roland Garros press conference." The room laughed, but she said it unprompted, in her very first sentence. The fact that she brought it up herself, without being asked, said everything about how deeply that moment had marked her season. Alex Eala never once responded to any of it. No comments. No reaction. No engagement with the narrative swirling around her name. Instead, she spoke in measured, calm interviews about compartmentalization, staying present point by point, and using her platform to inspire the next generation of Filipino tennis players. That silence was its own answer. Because the real contrast in Rome wasn't about rankings or results. It was about response. One player left Foro Italico with a code violation, a fractured press conference arc, and a quarter-final exit that raised more questions than it answered. The other left with a doubles run that exceeded every expectation, a reputation that held firm even after a brutal opening round defeat, and a momentum that kept climbing quietly in the background. On paper, Sabalenka was the superior player in Rome 2025. That's not arguable. But dominance in tennis isn't only measured in titles and rankings, it's measured in emotional control, in composure when the environment shifts, in how a player responds when the spotlight starts pointing somewhere else. Sometimes the most dangerous opponent isn't standing across the net. Sometimes it's the pressure of the room, the crowd, the expectations, the awareness that a 19-year-old wildcard is changing the emotional temperature of a tournament without even being in your match. Rome didn't stay in Rome. It followed Sabalenka into Paris. Paris followed her to Wimbledon. And the emotional thread that started at Foro Italico became part of her entire 2025 season, whether she chose to acknowledge it or not. Meanwhile, Eala kept building. Quietly. Without explanation. Without controversy. Step by step, match by match, climbing. One player left Rome managing questions about composure and reaction. The other left it with momentum, experience, and a trajectory that doesn't look like it's stopping anytime soon. That's why this story matters, not because of what the scoreboard said, but because of everything happening just beneath it. If you made it this far, you already know what this channel is about. Not recycled headlines, not surface-level takes. The angles mainstream coverage skips, the context behind the story, not just the story itself. Subscribe if you want more breakdowns built this way. Real facts, deeper perspective, no shortcuts. The next one is already in motion. Don't miss it.